My name is Thomas Reed. I am 81 years old. My best friend died last winter, and I was not sitting beside him when he did. There are mornings when I wake up before the sun has fully decided to rise. The room is still gray, suspended between night and day. For a few seconds, I don't remember where I am in my life. My hand moves on instinct, reaching toward the phone on the nightstand. The movement is automatic, learned over decades. Only afterward does my mind catch up and remind me that there is no one left to call in the way I once did. The phone stays silent. It always does. The house is quiet now. Not the comforting kind of quiet that comes from rest or peace, but a quieter quiet. One that feels final, sealed, settled. As if a conversation has ended and no one is coming back to continue it. I used to think silence was something you earned with age. Now I know it can also be something that arrives when too much has already passed. I'm telling this story now because I don't have much time left to tell it, and because pretending that I understood everything earlier, when it might have mattered, would be a lie. I didn't understand. I learned slowly, painfully. Too late to fix most of what I wish I could fix. His name was Michael. We met when we were both 29 years old. I had just moved to Ohio for work. Everything in my life felt temporary then. The town, the job, even the furniture in my apartment. The walls were thin enough that you could hear neighbors coughing, arguing, living. The refrigerator rattled through the night like an old engine refusing to shut down. Michael lived 2 doors down. One evening he knocked on my door and said my radio was coming through the wall. He asked what song it was. That should have been the end of it. Instead, we stood in the hallway, talking for nearly an hour, leaning against opposite door frames, sharing small details as if we were filling in gaps that had already been there. There was no dramatic beginning, no spark anyone else would have noticed. Just a quiet sense of recognition. That was how it started. For the next 50 years, Michael became the one constant in my life. Jobs changed, addresses changed, relationships began and ended. Entire versions of myself came and went. Through all of it, Michael remained. I don't say that lightly. People often reach for big words when they talk about friendship. Brother, soulmate, chosen family. We never used those words. We didn't need to. We showed up. That was the understanding. No speeches, no promises, just presence. In our 30s, we worked too much. Both of us did. I was in logistics. He was in sales. Long days, long drives, exhaustion that followed you home and sat beside you on the couch. We had a rule, Thursday nights, beer and whatever game happened to be on television, sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine. No pressure if one of us had to cancel. That mattered to us then. We were proud of how reasonable we were, how flexible. We believed that was what adulthood looked like. Only much later did I realize that flexibility unchecked slowly becomes distance. At the time, everything felt justified. We were building lives, trying to be responsible, trying to prove to ourselves more than anyone else that we mattered. Michael married first. Linda was gentle, reserved, quietly warm. She laughed easily but never loudly. When their first child was born, I held that baby with both hands, afraid I might break something precious. I told Michael I would always be around. I meant it. Then my career began to move. More travel, more responsibility, promotions that sounded impressive but mostly meant fewer open hours and more closed doors. My calendar filled up and I mistook that fullness for importance. Michael's career stalled. He never complained. He worked harder, took on extra accounts, missed a few Thursdays. I didn't think much of it. We were still friends. That felt permanent, like gravity, like weather. We talked on the phone. The conversations became shorter, but they were still warm, still familiar. "Next week," one of us would say. Next week quietly turned into next month. Then my marriage began to crack. I didn't tell Michael right away, not because I didn't trust him, but because saying it out loud would make it real. I thought I needed to handle it on my own, fix things privately, keep moving. Michael sensed something was wrong. He asked gently, more than once. I brushed it aside. That was one of the first real chances I had to let him back in fully. I didn't take it, not because I didn't care, but because I believed there would always be time later. That belief followed me through my life like a shadow I didn't notice until it had grown longer than everything else. After my divorce, loneliness arrived in unexpected ways. Friends drifted, often without realizing they were doing it. Invitations slowed, conversations shortened. Michael stayed neutral, as he always did. But he was busy too. Teenage children, college savings, responsibilities I hadn't yet learned how to carry. We still met for coffee sometimes, less beer, more talk about aching joints and blood pressure readings. I remember one afternoon in a small diner, vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like burnt water. Michael looked tired, not sleepy, worn down in a way that sleep doesn't fix. He told me he felt invisible at work, like everything he had built was being quietly replaced by younger people with faster energy and brighter smiles. I nodded, offered advice, talked about adapting, about staying relevant. What I didn't do was sit with him in the feeling itself. I didn't allow silence to do its work. I filled it, thinking that solutions were kindness. He didn't argue. He smiled and changed the subject. Years passed that way, no arguments, no dramatic falling out, just erosion, a birthday dinner missed because of travel, a voicemail returned a day too late, a holiday card instead of a visit. I told myself we were still close because we could always pick up where we left off. And for a while that was true. But picking up where you left off only works if both people are still standing in the same place. We weren't. Michael's children grew up. One moved across the country. One called less often. Linda became ill. Not suddenly. Slowly. A long illness that turned their house quieter each year. I sent messages, checked in, planned visits. I always planned to visit. The last time I saw Michael while he was still healthy, we walked through a park near his house. Fallen leaves covered the ground. The air was sharp with cold. He moved more slowly than he used to, rested on benches. He joked about getting old. I laughed too quickly, as if speed could erase truth. He asked if I was happy, not casually, but carefully. I gave a partial answer. Something about staying busy. He nodded and let it go. That was Michael. He never pushed. Linda died 2 years later. I attended the funeral and sat in the third row. We hugged for a long time, awkward, heavy, filled with things neither of us knew how to say. After that, I should have been there more. I know that now. I wasn't entirely absent, but I wasn't fully present either. Once, on the phone, he said he didn't want to be a burden. I told him he wasn't. I meant it. But I still didn't rearrange my life. Then came the diagnosis, cancer, late stage, aggressive. He told me over the phone. His voice was steady, almost apologetic. I said I would come soon. Soon became later than it ever should have. There were treatments, complications, weeks that were better, weeks that weren't. Every time I considered visiting, I worried about timing, about saying the wrong thing, about seeing him fade. Those worries sounded compassionate. They were also convenient. When I finally went to the hospital, he was thinner than I expected, pale, his eyes still unmistakably his. He smiled when he saw me. That smile still breaks something open inside me. We talked about old stories, safe territory. We laughed quietly. I stayed for an hour, told myself I would come back. I didn't. I don't have a good excuse. I have explanations, but they sound hollow now. He died on a Tuesday morning. His daughter called me. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that. The clock kept ticking. That felt cruel. At the funeral, I stood near the back. I watched strangers cry for someone I had known deeply. I felt like a guest in my own life. Some things cannot be repaired once someone is gone. You don't get to clarify. You don't get one last shared silence. You don't get to say, I should have been here more and have it matter. It all stays with you. Now I replay old conversations, the pauses, the moments I rushed past. I see how often I chose efficiency over presence. How often I treated time as a resource instead of a gift. Success didn't protect me from this loss. It distracted me long enough to let the most important things slip away. Michael will be remembered as a father, a husband, a co-worker. I will be remembered, if at all, as a friend from long ago who drifted. That hurts more than I expected. If you still have someone who knows your old stories, who remembers you before you became who you are now, hold that carefully. Not urgently, not dramatically, just carefully. Closeness does not survive on intention alone. It requires real time, physical time, awkward time, inconvenient time. I don't say this to teach anyone. I'm not good at that. I'm only sharing what I learned when there was no one left to practice it with. These days my world is smaller, quieter. I live more with memories than with plans. Some nights I speak to Michael out loud. I tell him things he would laugh at, things he would argue about. I don't expect answers. I have made peace with many parts of my life. This one still aches. Acceptance doesn't mean it stops hurting. It just Acceptance doesn't mean it stops hurting. It just means you stop fighting the truth. If this stirred something in you, that is enough. I don't need anything else from it. I've said what I needed to say, and now I let the quiet return.